Hello. Well, I do have some good news at last, and it's about British defence budget. Now, I think Boris Johnson is being rather clever here. I have accused the man of being indecisive and not fulfilling his promises, but I have also said that I thought that the COVID illness he had really knocked the stuffing out of him. Unfortunately, I'm rather sorry about Dominic Cummings going, and I think that was possibly a mistake. And I can imagine it had to do with Boris Johnson's now wife, who's a little sort of PC, and dog's bothering me again, and might be changing his direction somewhat socially. And I'm a bit worried about that. But with this is a good thing. He's going to increase the defence budget. Now this will accomplish several tasks all in one, and it can bring nothing but good for these islands. And yes, I'll explain my thoughts on this. First of all, I'm going to read this TRT World, whatever that is. Prime Minister Johnson announced he will increase his country's military budget by $22 billion to establish a new space command and an artificial intelligence agency. I think that's probably one of the most important things, because, as I have said before, Trump's biggest strategic mistake was not taking in hand the monopoly internet companies had on information, and also on the somewhat less on the television channels. And I don't think he quite grasped the damage that they could do, and indeed that they have done. And I think Johnson may have learnt from that, because he's going to try and give the country, by the looks of things, an independent set of systems. And that, sealed within the country. He probably has learnt some stuff that he'd rather not tell us, frankly, about leakages. Anyway, on Thursday, the British Prime Minister, that would be last week, announced his country's biggest military increase in expenditure since the Cold War. Johnson pledged to end the era of retreat as he seeks a more influential role in the world in the post-Brexit period. So you see what's going on. First of all, we're out of Europe, so we can't depend on any European army. Secondly, he wants to establish Britain as a world force again, rather than as a part of a federated system with France and Italy and Germany and those other countries. And thirdly, and this is probably the most important thing, Britain has serious financial problems right now. They're not apparent right this minute, but they will be soon, all to do with the COVID shutdowns. A lot of businesses are going out of business. A lot of areas that had industries are shutting down. It's economic. I mean, the Chinese conducted an economic war on us, which is having an effect. Johnson can see that starting up a military industry will soak up some of the unemployment. It will either mean that we will be producing more materiel in our own factories, and it will also mean that more people will be joining the army, which will take some of the employment statistics out. And in many cases, provided it doesn't go mad, this is not a bad idea. It will kickstart an idea. It's also another thought. It's a matter of national confidence, isn't it? When people feel a national confidence, then they'll do more things, they'll take more risks, they'll put more money into the future, that sort of thing. And Johnson is trying to do that. The other thing is we will need more armies. Let's see what Scallop Wars. Here, how about this? You see, France is already acting quite aggressively, and it has been for some time. The North Sea is full of scallops, apparently, and there are French boats out there fishing in what the British regard as our waters. French and British fishermen have clashed in the English Channel in an escalating battle over scallops. About 40 French boats tried to stop 5 larger British boats. So 40 French fishing boats are actually attacking British boats for fishing in British waters. Trying to stop 5 larger British boats from fishing 12 nautical miles off the Normandy coast in the Bay of Seine. Now that's one of those disputed areas. The problem is the British Channel is very narrow. Now the UK fishermen are demanding government protection while the French bewail the loss of a primary resource. So they want more protection, and this story is from 2018, but it's just going to get worse, of course. And Johnson will wish to put more boats out there to protect our fishing boats. Let's see what else we have here. There's another one. Oh dear, I had a picture. Yes, of course, I had a picture which I'll put up. It shows a lot of refugees, or rather refugees, in a dinghy. And what happened was they had been brought from France, or escorted by the French Navy anyway, and as soon as they got into British territorial waters, they were left. And of course, the British Navy or the Coast Guard had to pick them up. And that's going on all the time. France is dumping refugees into Britain. And again, this has caused a national outrage, and it's been brought to the fore by Nigel Farage. Of course, the British government quite quiet about it, but Nigel Farage has been making a big fuss about it. And if Johnson doesn't do something, Farage's newly formed Reform Party is going to get a lot of his votes. So, you know, this is all good. I'm sorry that Farage isn't in Parliament, but I don't know, perhaps he is the gadfly that the Conservative Party needs. So here we have another one in The Guardian. Boris Johnson agrees a £16 billion rise in defence spending. Boris Johnson has agreed a 4-year £16.5 billion surge in defence spending at a time when Britain's public finances have been stretched by the pandemic, and a day after it emerged that billions of pounds could be cut from the foreign aid budget. And this is The Guardian. So you see, this is their take on things. We are going to be spending money on our defence budget instead of the foreign aid budget. What a tragedy. Yeah, well, quite frankly, Mr. Guardian, I agree with Johnson. It should be spent on us, and we will need that defence budget, and this will improve our lives in many ways. As I said, industry, unemployment, or rather reduction of unemployment, and just a sense of national pride again. This is The Independent. End era of retreat. And that's what Boris Johnson is saying, that we should stop thinking that we are a weak country off the coast of Northern Europe. We have the 5th or the 4th, I think it's the 4th largest economy in the world, and influence all over the place. And we should be proud of that and doing stuff about it. Boris Johnson has pledged to develop laser weapons for the UK military as he announces £16.5 billion cash injection into the defence budget. Our warships and combat vehicles will carry directed energy weapons, destroying targets with inexhaustible lasers. That sounds a bit science fiction to me. I wonder if he's got information that we don't. For them, the phrase out of ammunition will become redundant, he told the Commons. I think possibly that's being a little over enthusiastic. But he does say the modernisation package would end the era of retreat and upgrade our capabilities across the board when it came to our armed forces. And I think that's a magnificent idea. Right, what's the next one? Here, BBC. Defence funding boost extends British influence. A once-in-a-generation modernisation of the armed forces is required to extend British influence and protect the public, Boris Johnson has said. And yes, that's something else, because the army will be used for internal protection, against terrorism. If we have more of high-tech intelligence services, we can keep more of an eye on domestic terrorists, and we can also do something about them when they turn up, rather than relying on the police. Maybe the next thing you should do something about is the police, Johnson, because at the moment they are a bit of a mess. Oh, by the way, I'm not talking about individual police officers. Obviously, there are many very brave and dedicated police, but for some reason, I don't see that coming from the top. And that's what we need. Of course, this is the BBC, so they have economist Ben Zaranko from the Institute of Fiscal Studies, who said while this represented a big rise in spending, the figure of $16.5 billion was a misleading way to present this announcement. It would be more accurate to say that by 2024 to 25, defence spending will be £7 billion higher than it would have been under previous plans. Well, I think £7 billion is quite a nice lot of money. What else do we have? I don't know what page this is from, but anyway, Boris Johnson agrees a £16 billion rise in defence spending, and he says, yeah, here we are, Hackers HQ and Space Command. I'm not sure about us going into space, but it's satellites that's the big thing, isn't it? That's how you keep an eye on the coastal waters. Experts said the windfall represents the largest real terms increase in the defence budget since Margaret Thatcher's premiership, and will be partly spent on a national cyber force of hackers and a new space command designed to protect orbiting satellites and launch its own rockets. There we are. Yep. This is all very, very good. And then, what paper is this? This looks like The Guardian, but... Oh, it is The Guardian. Yeah, so, of course, The Guardian is going to say, here, it comes weeks after ministers resisted spending extra money to fund free school meals in the holidays. And days after it emerged that the overseas aid budget is set to be cut by billions. Yeah, well, we can. Do you know, India gets a whole load of overseas aid from Britain, and they're sending rockets into space. It's ridiculous. A lot of people have been complaining about this, and I do not see why The Guardian should not be aware of this, which of course they are, but they have to do something to detract from Johnson's idea of building up the military. No, I think the military is a fantastic idea. I think, provided we don't go in for some really silly wars, it's a wonderful idea, and it will really help restart the country's economy and our confidence in the future. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, Please click like, subscribe and share, share, share.